All right, O'Brien, welcome to Pro Football First 50 Years, where we take the past and we bring it back to life. Now, I'm strictly talking the first 50 years here, 1920 to 1970. Now, you can go online, especially if you're going to go out and check out a game like back from the 20s or the 30s. I mean, sure, you can go online and find the box score, who won, who lost, who scored a touchdown, how far a field goal was that someone kicked, what the attendance was, where the game was played at. You might find starting lineups for each team, but exactly what happened during the game? Well, thanks to old newspaper articles, we get to take a little bit of a deeper dive into each and every game during the first 50 years of professional football. Now, a little news flash here for you. Ain't no fancy videos or nothing like that here. All there is you and me for the next 30 to 60 minutes. So if that's all right with you, let's get it on. And today's game, exhibition game, at the Glass Bowl. Oh, yeah, the Glass Bowl. Toledo, Ohio. Oh, yeah. The Detroit Lions played the Philadelphia Eagles at the Glass Bowl, September 3rd, 1959. Now, this is just one of the interesting things where, obviously, the teams, they played a lot of neutral site games back then. If you look at the schedules of these teams, and well, let's crank them up, shall we? Let's take a look. I mean, this would be actually the second game Detroit played a game in Ohio. It's not too far from Detroit, but you know. Let's see. Let me share the old screen here. Pull up the Lions schedule, and you know, it just also, I mean, it just some, you know, they go to some of these places and the attendance is not, you know, I mean, a lot of it's so much, it's not, the attendance is so much maybe horrible because perhaps the stadium might be sold out. It's just some of these venues they play at are just small. Like if we look here, right? I mean, this game right here, yeah, against the Eagles, 9,500 people. I mean, could you imagine? I mean, there's some high school stadiums that are bigger than that. I mean, could you imagine, like nowadays, like the Lions play the Eagles in a preseason game and they play it in high school? I mean, the Giants played the Eagles in Hershey, Pennsylvania. That drew, we'll show you that in just a second, like 12,000 people. The Giants and the Packers played a preseason game at all places, Bangor, Maine, which was the first ever professional football game played in Maine. That stadium was sold. It was sold out, but it was only 12,000 people. I mean, just you know, they play these, you know, these stadiums that just don't hold a lot of people. But if we look here, it's the season here. I mean, basically, each team was like on the opposite end of the spectrum. I mean, this was a fantastic season for the Eagles. They finished 7-5. They only had 2 wins the year before. This was a fantastic year. They finished 7-5. They fell apart. They lost 2 of the final 3 games, but they, you know, going into the final few weeks, they had a chance at winning the division. Now, of course, 1960, the Eagles would go on and win the championship. But I mean, you know, to go from 2 wins to 7 wins in one season is fantastic. On the other hand, for the Lions, this was, yeah, not a good year at all. Absolutely horrible. As you see right here, as I scroll up, they only had 3 wins all season. They were 3-8-1. I mean, you win the championship in 57, and 2 years later, you win in 3 games. I mean, that's a major, major disappointment. I mean, you can just see, I mean, yeah, there was nothing to really get excited about. I mean, their preseason wasn't bad. For of all things, they played 7 preseason games, the Lions. Could you imagine that? 12 regular season games, but 7 preseason games. This one here This is a mistake. They lost this game. This is, I would tell Pro Football Archives, but there's like nowhere on their website to tell them that this is wrong. The Cardinals won this game 21-19. Here it says the Lions won it 21-19, so that's wrong. But I mean, they won their share. They won what, 4 preseason games? So the preseason was very successful. But I mean, you look right here. They came out of the gates here. They lost their first, 4 games, then they won 1, then they lost. I mean, then they got killed by the 49ers, then they tied the Steelers. Then they won 1, then they lost a couple. They won another one, and they lost. But I mean, they beat the Rams, who won only 2 games all year. Then they beat the Rams, who won only 2 games all year. Then down here, they beat the Cardinals, who won only 2 games all year. So they won 3 games. The 3 each one of the teams that they beat, they only beat 2 different teams, but they only won 2 games. So I mean, it's a very, very disappointing season for the Detroit Lions. But now on the other hand, for the Eagles, and I'll show you that game at Hershey, Pennsylvania. Right, this I said 9,500 people. Right, but you can also see, right, this was the 9,500 people. What 2 weeks prior? On August 22nd, they played the Browns in Akron, Ohio, at the Rubber Bowl. So, I mean, like Detroit, they played in Colorado. Then they played in Oklahoma. Then they played in Ohio. Then they actually played a game in Detroit, Michigan. Imagine that, huh? Then they played another game in Toledo, Ohio. So 4 of their 7 preseason games were at neutral sites. They actually had a 7 game. They didn't play 1 true away game where they played at the other team's home site. If we look here with the Eagles, I said 7-5. They were tied for second place. Fantastic season and they did it the way you should, right? They had a horrible bad season. The next year they got a lot better, and then it culminated the next season. I believe they were 10-2 in 1960, and of course they won the championship. They gave Vince Lombardi his only postseason loss. Vince Lombardi was 9-1 in his postseason career. His one loss was the 1960 championship game to the Philadelphia Eagles. So this was a good time to be an Eagle fan, that is for sure. But you'll see here, right? The first game that the exhibition game that they played was against the Giants. It was in Hershey, Pennsylvania, at Hershey Stadium. 12,000 people showed up. Right? I mean, because the stadium's not that big. 12,000. Same thing. I mean, at 9,500 people here. So crowds were not, were at some of the places were not very large, shall we say, but a lot of them, some of them were fundraisers. And also some had to do with the fact that a small part, the AFL was looming in the horizon. And the NFL wanted to play games in certain areas where they think they can maybe do some expansion. If they thought that like possibly Dallas was a good place to expand, to put a team in there to either get their foot in the door before an AFL team got in there, or if the AFL team did get in there, they wanted to get a team in there to rival, like with Dallas. We had the NFL had the Cowboys, the AFL had the Dallas Texans, and after a few seasons, the Dallas Texans couldn't compete with the Dallas Cowboys of the NFL, obviously. So the Dallas Texans moved to Kansas City, where they became the Chiefs. But you see, here is a very good season for the Eagles. They lost the first game of the season. Then they walloped the Giants. Then they beat the Steelers. Then they lost to the Giants. But then so after what was it? 6 weeks they were 6-2. Then they lost 6-3. 7. Then they were 8-3. So after 9, what was it? No, 6-3. Yeah. So it was after 9 weeks, there were only 1 game out of first place. They were 6-3, and the Giants were 7-2. So they only 1 game out of first place. Then they And they got the rear ends handed to them here by the Steelers. But even with their 4 losses, the Giants had 2 losses. Now, if the Giants were to lose their final 2 games of the season, which didn't happen, and if the Eagles could win their final 2 games of the season, which didn't happen, Eagles would still have a chance of winning the division. Then they beat the Redskins, but this same week that the Eagles beat the Redskins, the Giants beat the Browns. So that after the 11th week of the season, the Giants sewed up the division because the Giants only wound up with 2 losses all year. Then they lost a tough one. The Eagles lost a tough one here to the Browns at the end of the season. But all in all, it was a very, very good season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And as I said, not so good for the Detroit Lions. Like I said, the Glass Bowl. That's where they played. We had 9,500 people. But, all right, so let's go. Let's see what does good old Wikipedia have to say about the Glass Bowl. All right. Okay. Now, it was obviously it was the home of the University of Toledo Rockets. The Glass Bowl is a stadium in Toledo, Ohio. It is primarily used for American football and is the home field of the American football team of the University of Toledo Rockets. It is located on the school's Bancroft campus, just south of the banks of the Ottawa River. Known for its blend of old and new, it retains the traditional stonework around the field throughout all its expansions. Now, it's had some expansions field-wise. Not field-wise, but to the stands and all of that. It's gone through a few of them. So we'll see. Originally known as University Stadium, it was completed in 1937 at a cost of $313,000 as a works progress administration project. Originally, the natural seating bowl held 8,000 in 2 sideline grandstands. So it was basically, originally, it was almost kind of like a high school field. There was some grandstands on one side, there was grandstands on the other, and that was it. Basically, show you a picture coming up where, you can see where it basically would hold about 4,000 people on one side and about 4,000 people on the other side. That was it. There was a grass hill at the south end of the stadium, and at the open north end of the bowl were 2 stone towers, which are still standing, that served as makeshift housing for the football team in its early years. Following World War II, the stadium was renovated with many glass elements. I guess that's where you get the Glass Bowl, right? Because of this and the city's concentration on the industry, the stadium was renamed the Glass Bowl in 1946. South end zone stands were added in 1966, and further expansion came following Toledo's 35-game winning streak from 1969 to 1971, bringing the capacity up to 18,500 people. 1999, the Toledo-based Ohio Cannon of the Regional Football League played at various stadiums, including the Glass Bowl, but did not finish the season. The stadium hosted the 2001 MAC championship game. The stadium hosted the Italian Bowl on July 1st, 2023. It was the final game of the 2023 Italian Football League season. It hosted the Italian Bowl again in the summer of 2025. Now, renovations, here we go. 1990, the stadium had its largest expansion take place, adding a second level of seats to both sidelines as part of the $18.5 million renovation. A 3-story press box, 45 luxury suites, a 400-seat stadium club, sports information offices, and the Larimar Athletic Complex were built. The 3-story press box, the second largest in the nation, was the greatest improvement in terms of upgrades, as the former press box was barely 30 feet long and could hold only approximately 50 people. Wow. Further improvements include a video scoreboard in the north end zone in 1999 and the upgrade to, I hate this crap, upgrade to a field turf. Put grass in there, man. This turf crap. Upgrade to field turf playing surface in 2008. A new video board was installed in 2010. In 2016, a $3.5 million renovation took place, including replacement of the field turf, changes to the facade, updating concessions, restrooms, locker rooms, and ticket booths, as well as other minor cosmetic changes to the stadium. Now we got the largest crowd in Glass Bowl history for a University of Toledo football game was 36,852 for a game against the Naval Academy on October 27, 2001. Well, that might have been also because of 9/11 happened the month before that. So, when 9/11 happened, we puffed our chest out and we started really appreciating the armed forces. So I think, that might have had something to do with it too. When the Navy showed up, I'm sure people came there and I'm sure they applauded the naval team. But these are records, so like 30,000 to 36,000. In 1961, University of Toledo procured a genuine rocket from the United States Army's missile program. The Army Ordnance Corps presented the missile to the school at that year's season opener. The Toledo Rockets. The 1-ton rocket carries 2 sets of fins and a propellant booster capable of guiding it to the supersonic velocity. Wow. It sits on a 14-foot pylon outside the glass bowl pointing southwest. The glass bowl was often formerly used by the classmen as a rehearsal facility during weekends in the late spring and early summer. In addition, the glass bowl is used for monster truck rallies, commencements, and concerts, among other uses. So, it's used for other things. But mostly, as we see, you'll see over here the capacity, right? Now, they must have had like a whole bunch of people standing around the outside of the stadium or something like that to get 36,000 in there, because you can see the capacity. In 2001, the president was only, the seating capacity, I'm imagining, is 26,000. So, but you see in the beginning, the first couple of years, 8,000 people. Then they added a little expansion. They added like 3,500 seats. Then they added another 13. Then they added another 3,100. So slowly but surely it was creeping up there. But once again, it's the University of Toledo. It's not like it's a nice sized college and all, but it's not like Ohio State. It's not Michigan. I'm sure if they had call for 100,000 seats to be sold at every University of Toledo game, I'm sure that somehow they would find a way to either expand the stadium to hold that many or just build a new stadium altogether. But let's take a look here. Got some pictures here at what the glass bowl looks like. And I got a couple. There's a picture probably of what it looks like, in the very beginning. Might have been 37 or 38, 1939. Right, so this is probably the glass bowl through the years. It opened University in 1937. Originally, capacity was 8,000 seats. So you can see, possibly this is where maybe 4,000 people could sit here, and on the other side, maybe 4,000 people over here. Plain and simple. Right? Actually, you could see like how it's like, the grass here, it's built on an angle, right? So it's just kind of like laid, right? It's like laid on the ground, It's not, there's no pylon or cement holding it up or none of that. It's just like laying right on the ground there. Here's another old. Right, once again, where you can see. Let's see here. There's Baltimore. I'm not sure what the heck this is here. I guess they were doing some expansion here. Okay, there's a Wikipedia. You can see it says Rockets here. Right. You can see the seating capacity is nothing huge for Ball Stadium. Toledo Rockets, is that right? Yeah, see here in the end zone, it says Rockets. It's kind of like once again, a little bit of a horseshoe. But once again, you can see where kind of like these were this is where they expand with all of the press box and all that stuff got added on. Right? I mean, they did a great job there. You can see like here, this is where the original seats were at. I guess maybe they might have added the top tier maybe up here to it. Let's see where else we got here. Here's something here. Here's a nice end view, right? It said Rockets, right? Once again, the press box. So you can see this was like the original, I guess, right here. Right, and down here, and then you can see where they kind of added these extra seats up here, and obviously up top here that this part was added on, and then of course somewhere along the line, obviously they added this here, and they added the video scoreboard. Also, a very, very nice stadium, but once again, it's Toledo, and I said I'm sure if there was a call for always an extra however 20 or 30,000 seats, I'm sure one or two things would happen. Either somehow they would find a way, obviously, to add more seats or just build another stadium. I don't really have anything. I typed in 1959, and there's not a whole heck of a lot came up. Huh. Just a little. There you go. Look at that, huh? Yeah, we're talking. Little football game day. Glass ball turns into a snow globe. Wow. Very nice. But you can see there's like no individual seats or anything like that. They're all, But very nice. Very, very, very nice stadium. But once again, it just, it is a bit odd because, how small it is. And when a couple pro teams go, like 12,000. It's like, I mean, nowadays you go to a pro game, and even an exhibition game, only 12,000 people show up. That's highly disappointing, but it was what it was. So let's get a little bit of pregame action here going on. So let's see the September 3rd, 1959 edition of The Blade. What do they got to say? See here, I try to get a little bit of the Detroit version of the stories here, a little bit of version of the Philadelphia version, and then maybe the Ohio version, either whether it's pregame or talking about the game and all. So let's see here. We got The Blade. September 3rd, 1959. Here's Eagles coach, Coach Buck Shaw, talking it over with a couple young guards. I tell you, I mean, they ain't guards nowadays. I'll tell you what. I mean, if these are your guards nowadays, you're in a lot of trouble. Got guards nowadays are 310, 320. But Lions, Eagles to open up. On the basis of what occurred last weekend in Pro Football Exhibition Contest, It's reasonable to assume that there will be considerably more offense than defense tonight at 8:30 in the Glass Bowl, which actually is true. It's true. Oh, yeah. When the Lions meet the Eagles of the National Football League. In the case of the Lions, it's about time they showed some scoring finesse. In their last two outings against the Browns and the Giants, they netted a grand total of 9 points. In 8 periods of play, they've scored 1 touchdown. They are due to explode. Which, yep. In the opinion of Coach George Wilson, who has had the whip working overtime this week following a 38-0 pasting by the Giants. On the other side of the field, Coach Buck Shaw is quite happy with his offense, although he hopes his runners break loose from scrimmage to relieve pressure on passing artist Norm Van Brocklin. Dan has passed for 7 of the Eagles' 10 touchdowns in 3 exhibition games. They collected enough points to win, Shaw thought, in their exhibition with Green Bay Saturday night at Portland, Oregon. But the Packers romped to 45 points, and the final score was 45-28, and Shaw shudders to think that his defense may be no stronger than it was last season. In an effort to bolster the Philly defensive line, Shaw today traded veteran defensive halfback Jerry Norton to the Cardinals for guard Bob Konofsky and tackle Jerry Wilson. But they're working toward improvement. The white-haired veteran of 40 years of coaching in collegiate and pro ranks sent his athletes through 2 drills again today. Oh, yeah, you ain't doing that today. 2 drills? Ooh, you'll hurt the players' feelings. Oh, I was tired. Ooh. And see, tickets for the Lions-Eagle game will be on sale tonight at the Glass Bowl when the gates open at 6 o'clock. Don't be late. The game is scheduled for 8:30. Officials urge fans to arrive as early as possible to avoid traffic congestion. Very wise suggestion. They worked at TU's practice field in the morning and moved to DeVilbiss in the afternoon. DeVilbiss. Okay. Shaw refused to risk injury to his prized beef by working them at TU in the afternoon. Jim Grazioni, rookie flanker from Villanova, stepped in a hole in the morning drill and twisted an ankle. Hilton Murphy arranged for the facilities at DeVilbiss in the afternoon. Shaw accepted. The Eagles, in addition to the trade, released 5 players. They include back Joe Gattuso of Clementon, New Jersey. Oh, Clementon, that's about 10 miles from where I'm sitting right now. A former Navy star, lineman Jim Grabowski of Phoenixville, Pennsylvania, who had no college experience. Guard John Burroughs of Iowa, and Billy Templeton of Mississippi, and guard John McMullen of Notre Dame. There'll be other jobs at stake, no doubt, since this is the 4th game for the Eagles and the 5th for the Lions. All right, let's see, what do we got here? Let's go to the Bryan Times, the September 3rd, 1959 edition of the Bryan Times. What do they got to say? Lions to battle Eagles in Toledo's Glass Bowl. Norm Van Brocklin, Tommy McDonald of the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the best passing combinations in preseason National Football League play, get a crack at Detroit's porous umbrella defense tonight in an exhibition tilt at Toledo, Ohio. Van Brocklin, who claims McDonald has the best pair of hands he has seen in a long time, has already connected for 5 touchdown tosses to the ex-Oklahoma star this summer. And McDonald had a very good season this year. He scored 4 touchdowns against the Giants. McDonald won the opening game for the Eagles against the Giants. I don't mean that, I'm saying during the regular season. It was a game where the Eagles beat the Giants 49-21, where McDonald had 4 touchdowns. McDonald won the opening game for the Eagles against the New York Giants when he hauled in a 13-yard toss from Van Brocklin. Philadelphia lost its next two to the Bears and Packers, but the Eagles' escadrille sparkled as McDonald tallied twice in each game on Van Brocklin passes. Let's see, Packers meet the Giants. The Lions' lone victory came on a 9-3 decision over the Cleveland Browns. They tied the Los Angeles Rams, and they lost by 2 points to the Chicago Cardinals. The Green Bay Packers, with a devastating ground attack that outscored Philadelphia's aerial play, ran through a dummy scrimmage Wednesday in preparation for Saturday's game against the Giants in Bangor, Maine. And they talk about the Steelers, they talk about the Packers, they talk about the Bears. All right. Guess that is it for this one here. All right. So let's see what else we got here. What do we got? Now we got the Philadelphia Inquirer. Let's go to the Philadelphia. Right. How does Philadelphia feel about the pregame on this game? So September 3rd, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Eagles cut 5 and opposed Lions. Philadelphia Eagles will enter Thursday night's game here against Detroit with 5 less players than landed here from Portland, Oregon. Let's see. The game will be broadcast by radio station WCAU. Let's see. Head coach Buck Shaw, unhappy over the team's performance against Green Bay in Portland last Saturday night, released one back. I already read those guys that they released, the 5 guys. The squad, including injured rookie tackle John Madden. Do we know who John Madden is? He's the one he obviously tore up his knee and couldn't play again. So very, very interesting here. The squad, including injured rookie tackle John Madden. And, of course, there's 1959, and, of course, John Madden would never play ever again and going to the coaching ranks. Let's see. Squad, including injured tackle John Madden, who did not make the trip, now totals 45. Yeah, because I think they had 46 players on if I remember reading, because they would show like all the players in the exhibition, and I believe there was like some had 40, some had in the 40s, some had maybe might have had maybe like 50 some odd players or so, but it was not a lot. It wasn't like 90 like they have today. Let's see. It must be reduced by 2 more by Labor Day and down to the required 35 by September 22nd. 35. Unlike today, where we have 53, you can only dress, I think, 46. But still, they only had 35 back then. With his 2 starting offensive ends already on the shelf, Shaw lost another player that he had been grooming to help bolster the weakened positions when Jim Grazioni, former Villanova star, twisted his right ankle Wednesday in a hole on the practice field. Shaw was trying Grazioni as a flanker or end. Yeah, once again, stuff like that's not happening. But I tell you what, you lose a player. I mean, just even to but I mean, so that's all for the Philadelphia for the pregame. But they talk about John Madden, huh? I mean, you lose a play to like a hole in a playing surface in preseason. Wow, you can't afford to be doing that. All right, so we got one more here. We're going to go to the Detroit Free Press, September 3rd, 1959 edition of the Detroit Free Press. What does Detroit have to say? Wasn't that cool? They talked about John Madden because he got injured and he never played ever again. things were a little bit different back then. Now if you hurt your knee, you can get something done to it, and usually by the next year you can play again if you take the proper steps and all that stuff. Sometimes back then they tear your knee, you tear your knee up, right? You can your career could be over. Things have come a long way since what, the 60s or 50s or whatever. A long way. All right. It's now or never. Quarterbacks and line set. Rookies cut. Go and get them, you Lions. They've said it for years about the Tigers, so much so that it has become a slogan. Surely the plaint goes, they're not as bad as they seem. And now crosstown whispering includes the Lions. The 38-0 loss to the Giants suggested some awful things which could be compounded or forgotten Thursday night. With scant rest and limited preparation, the Lions play the Philadelphia Eagles in Toledo's Glass Bowl. Time is 8:30. The calendar demands improvement by the Lions. There's only 2 more exhibition games remain after this one, and then come on the Colts. I mean, I said so. This would be I think it's 5th game, I believe it is, or 4th game, and then they got they played 7 preseason games altogether. Let's see. Whoops. Yes, this will be their 5th game. Yeah. Anyway. Thus far, the Lions devoted much time to rookies and experiments have shown no signs of being able to regain the world title. But now, head coach George Wilson has removed all the barriers, cast off excess rookies, reduced his quarterbacking corps, and gained 2 valued pass receivers within the last few days. All this indicates the Lions are ready to pick up steam for the long haul ahead. Tobin Rote and Earl Morrall will begin their showdown for the right to be the number 1 quarterback. Wilson has not yet decided whether Rote or Morrall will start against the Eagles, but whoever does will play virtually all of the game. This alone is new. Until now, Rote, Morrall, and Jerry Reichow have split games into small segments, which held back everyone's development. The 2 pass receivers who are not available until this week are Reichow and Dave Middleton. And there's Tobin Rote and Earl Morrall. His quarterbacking days ended. Reichow now is at his flanker back post. Middleton was a welcome sight as he trudged onto the practice field for the first time Wednesday afternoon. He was the Lions' leading receiver last year, despite leg injuries which slowed him. Middleton has been completing work for a doctor's degree at the University of Tennessee. Wilson always has maintained that Middleton could have been one of the all-time greats of pro ball if he had devoted all his time to football. Even so, he says, Middleton will make a tremendous difference in this club. Middleton is expected to play, though perhaps only briefly, against the Eagles. Since the loss to the Giants, the Lions have made several other significant moves. Charlie Ann is now at center, adding more strength to the offensive line. Harley Sewell and Stan Campbell will share one of the guard spots, and rookies Mike Raybold and Bob Grotkow will share the other. The tackle spots belong to John Gorey and Ollie Spencer. With Ann at center, Wilson said, this line should be stronger than the one we had been planning. Gene Gedman, who has missed all 4 exhibition games, will make his debut, testing his problem knee. The Detroit defense will be shy 2 of its strongest members, linebacker Joe Schmidt and tackle Alex Karras. Wow. Well, they had, back then, they had, Yale Larry, they had Dick LeBeau, they had Alex Karras, they had Joe Schmidt. They had some Hall of Famers on that defense. Their loss is untimely because Norm Van Brocklin and the Eagles have shown in their 3 games that they can move the ball. Van Brocklin has passed for 7 touchdowns and 751 yards, but this week he will be without 2 of his favorite targets, and Pete Retzlaff and Bobby Walston, who will miss the game because of injuries. The Eagles will present 2 former Michigan State stars in their backfield, Walt Kowalczyk and Clarence Peaks. Philadelphia has been made a 1-touchdown favorite, but an upset by the Lions can make everyone forget the Giants' debacle. Philadelphia's lone victory thus far was over the Giants 21-7. So, all right, so let's get a little bit of action going on. And what happened during the game? Let's go to the Detroit Free Press. So the September 4th, 1959 edition of the Detroit Free Press. What did they got to say? What happened during the game? Bum, 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 bum. Lions roll with Rote, 35-24. He flips for 3 TDs and he scores 1. Eagles see a 14-0 lead go poof. Our 28-point period wipes out fast. And here's Mr. Root, happy camper. He's like in a whirlpool, soaking his body. It's happy days again for quarterback Tobin Rote. And if you had any money on it, the Yankees beat the Nationals 9-2. Let's see, what do we got here? A lot of first downs. I know the Lions, 25 first downs. Wow, look at that. A lot of, you'll see the Eagles did not fare so well. That is a lot of penalty yards. 61 and 91. Just doing these videos from 1959, I'll tell you what, that's a lot of penalty yards for one game. But you see the Eagles were up 14-0. It's like, and the Lions are like, oh my God. We just lost 38-0. Now we're up 4. Now we're losing 14-0. Then they came back with 4 touchdowns here. Of course, nobody scored in the last period, but so let's see. 18 out of 25. Van Brocklin was on, or the Eagles only 12 out of 24. So they took the wrappings off Tobin Rote Thursday night, and apparently his big head over there. And what they found was a lean, hardy Texan whose passing and running still must be feared. Rote, playing the full game, passed for 3 touchdowns and scored another as he revived the Lions with a 35-24 triumph over the Eagles. Only 10,000 fans saw this most important moment of the summer for the Lions. What they saw was Rote responding to the Lions' need of first-rate quarterbacking. He guided the ground attack smartly, inspired it with his own running, and tore the Eagles apart with his sharp passing. The result was the Lions' most productive attack thus far. The 35 points were the most they have scored in one game. Rote himself completed a phenomenal 18 out of 25. That is very good back then. Let me tell you, that's very good nowadays, too. Good for 252 yards by the Lions' finest performance of the summer. He also ran for 69 yards, topping all ball carriers in the game. So he had a heck of a game. All this came on the heels of a dismal beginning for both Rote and the Lions. The Eagles struck for a 14-0 lead in the opening period, and the Lions sagged while 2 of Rote's throws were being picked off by ex-U of D halfback Lee Riley. But when the Lions broke loose in the second period, they broke with a rush and piled up 4 touchdowns, which put the game beyond the Eagles' reach. Rote pitched a 19-yard pass to Jim Doran to get the Detroit attack started, then followed up with 2 strikes to Hopalong Cassidy, 1 for 11 yards, and the second, let's go to turn to page 31, column 2 of the Detroit Free Press. All right. So that ended, that said, Hopalong Cassidy for 11 yards, and the second for 10, and the Lions' first touchdown. Two Eagle fumbles helped. Gil Maines smashed down Eagle quarterback Sonny Jurgensen. I mean, how cool is that? You have two Hall of Fame quarterbacks on your team, huh? And Darius McCord recovered at the Philadelphia 45. Rote connected with two more passes, then finished off the thrust with a 5-yard dash around right end to tie the score at 14. Old Lion trickery on the ensuing kickoff and a lengthy penalty against the Eagles put the Lions ahead to stay. Cassidy's onside boot was picked up by Perry Richards at the Eagle 47. Then Rote fired deep on the right sideline to Cassidy. The Eagles were called for interference, and the Lions had the ball on the 12. Another penalty put it on the 6. Then Rote and John Henry Johnson took turns, and Johnson scored from the 1. Another Eagle fumble provided the Lions a chance at a 4th touchdown, and they didn't muff it. Starting from the Eagle 40, Rote pitched to Jim Gibbons twice. Then on a sweep behind great blocking, Rote sprinted 26 yards down to the Eagles' 6. He followed this up with a 6-yard pass to Danny Lewis with only 21 seconds remaining in the half for a 28-14 lead. The Eagles' final touchdown was a direct gift. It came at the start of the second half when Rote and Petrosani goofed on a deep pitch out. The Eagles recovered on the Detroit 2. Wow. And Theron Sapp scored to cut the lead to 28-21. There was not real danger for the Lions. The defense kept Norm Van Brockman and Jurgensen under constant pressure after the first period, and the Eagles never seriously threatened to overhaul the Lions. Philadelphia's only other score was a 47-yard field goal by Dick Bielski late in the third period. Rote's finest single play of the game had preceded that kick. He arced a long pass down the left sideline to Jerry Reichout, who until this week had split the quarterbacking duties with Rote and Omaha. Reichout took the throw in full stride and stepped into the zone, covering 50 yards on the play. The Lions' slow start was largely the work of Van Brockman. He stung them for a touchdown on the third play of the game, lofting a 40-yard pass to Tommy McDonald. 5 minutes later, he hit Bobby Walston for a 9-yard scoring pass. Wow. All right, let's go here. Let's. What does the Philadelphia Inquirer have to say here? So we're going to go to the September 4th, 1959 edition of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Lions tabbed 4 TDs in second to reverse Eagles 35-24. The Philadelphia Eagles failed to hold a 14-0 first period lead and dropped a 35-24 exhibition game to the Detroit Lions Thursday night before 9,500 in the Glass Bowl. It was the third loss of the exhibition season for the Eagles against one victory. That just goes to show you how, it's nice to have a good exhibition, but the Lions had a winning exhibition season, and they only won 3 games all year. The Eagles had a losing exhibition season, and they wound up with a record of 7-5. So, Tobin Rote shattered the Eagle pass defense with 18 completions in 25 attempts for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Lions roared back from the 14-0 deficit to score 4 touchdowns in the second period to put the game on ice. Howard Cassidy, Jerry Reichout, Dan Lewis, John Henry Johnson, and Tobin Rote each scored a touchdown for the victors, while Tommy McDonald, Bobby Walston, and Theron Sapp added TDs for the Eagles. I thought they said Bobby Walston wasn't going to play, but maybe it was somebody else I was thinking of. Dick Bielski field goal completed the Philadelphia scoring. Van Brockman connects. The Eagles took a quick 14-0 lead with Norm Van Brockman throwing 2 touchdown passes. The Eagles received to open the game, and after rookie Walmer Fowler carried the kickoff back to the Eagle 48. Philadelphia scored in just 3 plays as Van Brocklin hit Tommy McDonald on the Detroit 10 as he raced behind the Lions secondary. The Oklahoma Speedster raced unmolested down the right sideline for 39 yards and the score. Rookie Lee Riley intercepted the first of 2 passes he was to take in the first period to set up the second touchdown. Riley took in a Tobin Road toss on the Detroit 15 and returned it to the Philadelphia 30. Sonny Jurgensen quarterbacked the Eagles down to the Detroit 42, but was shaken up on a passing attempt and had to leave the game. A 15-yard penalty against Detroit on the play gave the Eagles a first down on the Lion 27. It took Van Brocklin 7 plays to rack up a score, hitting Bobby Walston for the final 11 yards. A diving catch by Walston on the Detroit 12 for a 14. Yard gain was the key play in the march. The Lions exploded for 4 touchdowns in the second period, however, to take a 28-14 halftime lead. Rote hit the first 3 passes in the second period to Jim Doran for 20 yards and Howard Hopalong Cassidy for 11 and 10 to this. The second good for the first Detroit score with 11:39 left in the period. Lion tackle Darius McCord picked up a ball which had been knocked out of the hands of Jurgensen on a passing attempt on the Philadelphia 45 to set up the second Detroit score. Detroit tallied in 8 plays, Rote going the final 5 with 3:27 left in the period. The Lions caught Philadelphia with an outside kick, that should be an onside kick, on the kickoff. A Rote to Cassidy pass was called good for interference on the Philadelphia 12, and the Eagles lost another 6 for unsportsmanlike conduct when they protested too vigorously on the play and were set back half the distance to the goal. It took Detroit 3 plays to score. John Henry Johnson slanting left for the final yard with 2:16 left. Another break gave the Lions their final score of the half. Dave Witzel recovered a fumble by Billy Barnes on the Detroit 40, and Detroit scored in 6 plays. Rote passed to Dan Lewis for the final 6 with 28 seconds left. Jerry Perry kicked all 4 extra points. The Eagles picked up 10 points and the Lions 7 in the third period, and the fourth quarter was scoreless. Dick Bielski kicked a 47-yard field goal, and Theron Sapp went over from the 2, and Bobby Walston converted for the Birds points. The Lions TD was another aerial maneuver, a 50-yarder from Tobin Road to Jerry Reichow, and Perry converted. There you go. Ooh, eight indicted on coast and horse race fixes. Wow, imagine that. People cheating. Wow, imagine that. Okay. All right, so now we got, let's see, we're going to go back to The Blade, the September 4th, 1959 edition of The Blade. What did they have to say here? Whoops, stop sharing. Whoops. Back to The Blade. All right. Okay. All right. There we go. Jim Carr of Philadelphia protested the decision, so officials inflicted another penalty for arguing. That's when the ball got moved even closer to the goal. And all right. Rote opens throttle. Lions travel in high gear. Quarterback ace hurls 3 for TDs and runs another one for a score. Wilson says improved blocking helped beat Eagles in TU Bowl. What's wrong with the Lions? Well, nothing much, especially when Tobin Road is under full throttle. If Coach George Wilson had been worried about his quarterbacking, and he had been, The problem was solved last night in the Glass Bowl as Rote and the Lions flogged the Philadelphia Eagles 35-24. Man, that was a long night, said Rote, who pitched the Lions to the World Professional title in 1957. But I loved it. The full game gave me a chance to do a lot of things. Blocking was so much better than I felt lonesome back there. Waiting to find my receivers makes a difference when they get out there where you can find them. I don't recall playing a full game since I was in school at Rice. Maybe we're on our way now. Maybe they are, but there certainly will be tougher opponents on the schedule. From here through mid-December, Norman Van Brocklin and the Eagles clicked for 2 first-period touchdowns, then collapsed as Rote gunned them down in a 4-touchdown second period. By far the Lions' finest attack of the season. The Toledo Elks, sponsors of the third pro game at the Glass Bowl, entertained a paid crowd of 9,406, most of whom came out to see offensive fireworks, and that's what they saw. 8 touchdowns and a 47-yard field goal by Eagles' Dick Bielski. The Lions even tricked their Eastern foes with an onside kick, a play that works only now and then in the Pro League. And Wilson was asked why the Lions should spring it here instead of saving it for a league game. We knew we could recover the ball because that side, the Eagles' right side of the receiving lineup, was hanging back, and it's a play like this which gives a team a big lift. And believe me, we've needed the big lift the last 2 weeks. Makes a big difference when you're blocking. Rote was great, and I thought our running attack worked well. But improved blocking was the thing I liked best. After recovery of the onside kick, Rote passed the Hopalong Cassidy, and officials ruled interference on the 12. And a subsequent penalty for yakking by the Eagles placed the ball on the. This is right here. I think this is where this was the yakking they're talking about. Placed the ball on the 6. So they had the penalty, the interference, I guess, down to the 12. The yakking, which was done right here by Jim Carr, was another penalty, brought it half the distance down to the 6. John Henry Johnson went over from the 1 to break the 14-14 time. The Lions were on their way in a rough and tough scrap in which NFL officials marched off yards and yards of penalties. All in all, Rote completed 18 to 25 passes for 272 yards and 3 touchdowns, ran for 69 yards on 12 plays, on one of which he scored. The Lions netted 428 yards to only 238 for the Eagles. Rote 69 was the top figure for all runners. Tobin Rote, I guess, wasn't the whole show. However, between halves, there was the music of the Central High Band, the Maryland Mets, and the U.S. Naval Reserves Band. Everyone but the Eagles liked it, said Coach Buck Shaw. We were pretty terrible. Shaw's feelings weren't soothed by the Eagles' share of the receipts, but the front office felt a bit better about things in general. Bob Sensney, executive secretary of the Elks, presented each club with a check for $13,000, and thanks to a sale of over $10,000 at the gate, the Elks realized a profit of $6,738.13 for their charity fund. Well, good for them. Once again, a lot of charity. So that's good to see. All right, well, got here. Lions take 2 of 3 falls in pro football brawl. Yep, the Lions beat the Eagles last night, 2 falls out of 3. It started out as a friendly evening for the Benevolent and Protective Order of Elks, sponsors of a pro football game. But somewhere in the second half, it became a different sport, which was neither benevolent, protective, nor football, nor lawn tennis either. It wound up as a battle royal between Gil Maines, a poor, undernourished 242-pound Detroit Lion, wearing blue trunks and a bloody forehead, and some Philadelphians posing as delegates from the city of brotherly love. On the next to last play of the game, described Maines, I lost my balance, so I figured as long as I was going to be taking a little spill, I might as well invite someone to go along. On the last play, the whole Philadelphia team came at me. They tried to gouge my eyes out. I started kicking. I wouldn't have kicked if they hadn't tried to gangbuster me. Maines, incidentally, was a professional wrestler and showed it as he tumbled across the sacred sod of the University of Toledo, carrying the Eagles' Darryl Ashbacher along. He was simply wonderful, said Alex Karras, 254-pound lineman of the Lions, of his teammate Maines. But next time we'll form a tag team, added Karras. We got the idea of wrestling as an Iowa lineman trying to tackle Ohio State's Bob White. The Eagles were bitter about Maines. They accused him of trying to injure Tommy McDonald, Philadelphia's pass catcher, by pushing him into some chairs along the sideline. McDonald wasn't bitter. Instead, he was amused. After I scored the first touchdown, they tried to get me upset all night, said McDonald. Jimmy David kept pinching me on the legs. I kept asking him why he would do such a thing. He just kept pinching me. Most of the Eagles complained the Lions were the roughest team they've ever encountered. And for the Lions, it was the wildest evening they have ever had since Bobby Lane drove the team's bus across the only bridge to the Glass Bowl. The game produced one historic play. Hopalong Cassidy from Ohio State football catch forward pass for a touchdown on Ohio soil. Cassidy took a pass from Tobin Rote in the end zone. However, Hoppy juggled it constantly until he could remember what Woody Hayes told him to do if he ever got caught in a forward passing situation. For Detroit rooters, the touchdown may carry an ill omen. It was in the Glass Bowl in Cassidy's first game as a pro footballer that he scored a touchdown, but didn't score a single point the rest of the season. Ooh. In the first period, Dan Lewis, Lion halfback, was chased out of bounds by the entire Philadelphia team. As they headed for a sideline bench, Red Wilson, Lou Berberet, Cootville, and a whole bunch of Detroit Tigers jumped up and ran for their lives. They thought the Eagles were the 11 White Sox runners coming at them. Wilson, incidentally, was thrown out of one game the night before by Charlie Berry, who umpires in the American League and officiates in the National Football League. Just think, moaned Wilson, in our game they throw us out. In this game they just penalize them 15 yards. Harold Wagner, an alderman of Toledo, met all the Tigers in departing. Wagner told the Tigers to take it easy, which prompted a bystander to remark the Tigers have been doing just that for years. The public address voice was that of Hilton Murphy. Murphy handled such handles as Petrosani, Gratkow, Luciano, Paolucci, Ryklek, Grazioni, and Kowalczyk. All right, but stumbled on Riley, O'Brien, and Murphy. Well, he also got slightly twisted once when he said Robin Tote carried the ball at a moment when Tobin Rote was toting the ball. Announcer Murphy took football voice lessons from Doug Tabner. And guess who saw the Lions for the first time ever for a grandstand seat? Van Patrick, that's who, with his pretty wife, Tony. No idea. Their host, Bob Galloway, exalted ruler of the Elks, reported Van Patrick was as calm and neutral about the Lions as ever. Exalted ruler Galloway and his herd of Elks deserved commendation for another fine promotion. The crowd was slightly smaller this year for three reasons. Loss of continuity when the Lions bypassed Toledo last year. Aha. Extreme hot weather preceded the game. And three, horrible defeats of the Eagles and the Lions last Saturday. Yeah. Also a bout to Bob Cessny, the efficiency secretary of the Elks. I'm not going to read this. But if you want, you can. All right, so I got one more here. Then we're going to go to a Detroit paper, see what they got to say on the Detroit paper. All right, this is it right here. Here we go. Whoops, whoa, my bad. Let's try this again. Share the screen. Is this it? Oh, here we go. All right, here we go. Okay, the Detroit Times. Old, and they got a picture right here. Good blocks and men downfield ahead of runner add up to scoring, and that's what the Lions got last night. Harley Sewell, number 66, and Steve Junker got ahead of Tobin Rote, while Dick Guzman takes out Eagles' Alan Miller, number 28. Detroit Lions were suddenly a ball club to talk about after the second quarter against the Eagles here last night. They hadn't scored a touchdown since early in the meeting with the Cleveland Browns 3 games back. When they started the second period, they were going into the 8th quarter without crossing a rival's goal. They were behind 14-0, a sorry-looking outfit. Then they fell together into a deadly, cohesive scoring unit. It was just like 57 all over again. Tobin Rote was passing and hitting his receivers, and he was running behind superb blocking. The Lions linemen were shattering the Eagles' forward wall. The Lions scored 4 times in the second quarter and once more in the third quarter, and they went on to win the game 35-24 before a sparse turnout of 9,406 in the Glass Bowl. The game settled problems Coach George Wilson says have worried him. Rote, for instance, is in at the number 1 quarterback. George says so. The big Texan gives him no choice as he accounted for 272 yards passing for 3 touchdowns, hitting 18 of 25. Hopalong Cassidy, Jerry Reichow, and Danny Lewis snared the touchdown passes, while Rote and John Henry Johnson ran for the other 2. Rote led the Lions to a net yards of 428 compared to the Eagles' 238. Norman Van Brocklin, Eagles quarterback, who has been passing sensationally in the preseason games, was held to 83 yards, gaining 8 out of 19. One was a pass good for 40 yards to Tommy McDonald for the first touchdown. Another for 9 yards sent Bobby Walston across the Lions' goal. Van Brocklin was held in check by the Lions' defense as it came to life after that. Sonny Jurgensen, who spells the Dutchman at quarter, completed 4 out of 5 passes for, looks like, 59 yards. Rote played the entire game. Wilson had said whoever started would be kept in. Earl Morrall came on the field only to hold the ball while Jerry Perry kicked his 5 points. The Eagles scored their 3rd touchdown after rookie Jim Carr recovered the ball on the Lions' 2 when Rote made a faulty pitch to fullback Nick Petrosani. Darren Sapp, rookie back from Georgia, who doesn't play like the name sounds, went over from the 2. Later, Dick Bielski kicked a dandy 47-yard field goal that ended the scoring for the Eagles. Brawl spelled the game somewhat in the second half as the referee, apparently trying, there's another one right here. Tobin Rote about to be crushed between 2 Eagle defenders. That looks painful. Oh, yeah. Very painful. The referees have been trying to even up the penalties, let the game get away from him. He walked off 271 yards in penalties. 271. 161 of these went to the Lions, 116 in the second half. Well, I think that's wrong. Well, either that or the one stat line that we saw from the other paper. I think it had 91 and 61. So I don't know. That I don't know. But here it says 116 yards to the Lions and 114 of it in the second half. Wow. The Eagles were penalized for 110 yards, and all but 5 were levied in the first 2 quarters. It looked like another Lions debacle when the Van Brocklin put the Eagles in front with his tosses to Tommy McDonald and Bobby Walston. Coach Buck Shaw must have thought so too as he sent Sonny Jurgensen in for Van Brocklin. The Lions stalled the Eagles as the second quarter started, and Jim Stephan, back for the kick, returned to the Lions 41. Rote then started what was to be his best play of the season to date as his passes moved the Lions downfield. Jim Dorn nabbed a 19-yarder, and Happy Hopalong Cassidy took two in a row, the second for a touchdown. Carr on Cassidy was completely fooled on Hoppy's touchdown grab, and Carr was completely burned, so much so he aired later. But before that transpired, Gil Maines and Darius McCord, those tiny tot line defensemen, whipped into Sonny Jurgensen, and the ball exploded away from him. Darius floundered forward and fell on the ball while the Gil yelled, "Get up and I'll block for you." From the Eagle 45, Rote passed 15 to Cassidy, 12 to Steve Junker, ran behind the Lions' new steamroller interference of 5 strong, led by Harley Sewell, who had a great night, to the Eagles' 8. On the second play, Rote went 5 to score. That tied it at 14. The onside kick of the Lions, recovered by Perry Richards on the 47, broke the Eagles' back and lifted the Lions in football heavens. Was this the Wilson daring? The coy coach said it was all planned. Everybody knew it was coming. That is all the Lions. On the first play, Rote threw a long one to Hopalong Cassidy, and the aforementioned Carr, not to be fooled this time, clamped on Cassidy before the arrival of the ball. Interference gave the Lions the ball on the 11. Rote drove to the 2, and then in a nice bit of hocus pocus, which completely foxed the Eagles, John Henry went over untouched, and the point of Perry made it at 21-14. Dave Witzel put the Lions in marching position again when he recovered Billy Barnes' fumble on the Eagles' 40. Rote, after passing to Jimmy Gibbon and John Henry, got away from the Lions' big interference wall again for 26 yards down to the 6. He wasn't tackled, he explained. I could have gone all the way, but I slipped. Rote then passed to Danny Lewis for the touchdown. The best catch of the night was on Rote's pass to Jerry Reichow, good for 50 yards and the Lions' 5th touchdown. Coach Wilson felt so happy he gave the Lions the next 2 days off. Next practice is Sunday at 10 a.m. at Cranbrook. So yeah, don't forget this game here. This was a Thursday game. So what we got here? I think, is this right? Whoops. Yeah. That's it. They got that picture right there. This was, let me see here. I think it was a Thursday game. Yeah, it was a Thursday game. So the Lions played the Saturday before, then they played this Thursday. Then they won't play for like another week and a half. They play the third. So they got 10 days off in between this game and all. But once again, this is just exhibition. The Lions actually came roaring back and looked really, really good. And the Eagles got shut down. The Lions scored a bunch of points, had over 400 yards of offense. The Eagles, scored some points, and didn't have a lot of offense. But once again, this was just preseason, and as I showed you before, the regular season was totally different. The Detroit Lions would almost wind up in last place with only 3 wins. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles would be tied for second place with 7 wins. So, exhibition's one thing. The regular season is something else. So, that's the way it was on this date, September 3rd, 1959, as Detroit Lions and the Philadelphia Eagles battled each other at the Glass Bowl in Toledo, Ohio, in pro football, first 50 years. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.